Hello, 5th grade. We're on Domain 1, Lesson 11, Close Reading. Our objectives for today's lesson are to quote the text when inferring and explain why the author included certain details in her narrative. And working from your lesson from Lesson 10, you're going to begin writing your surprise narratives, and it's going to actually be completed in Lesson 12. Your key vocabulary is manhandled, physically mistreated. So this is an image for the text you're going to be reading. This is really important to understand where Rosa Parks was in regards to when she was sitting on the bus with her infamous arrest. And so we're going to read a little bit from her narrative. So again, you're going to read this independently. I'm going to pause my video so you can see and be able to read it carefully. Feel free to pause the whole video altogether and reread it as many times as you need to and take your time. We want to make sure you're reading it thoroughly. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at details. Many authors think very carefully about what is important to include in their narratives and what can be left out. You know, Rosa Parks could have talked about how she woke up in the morning and, got dressed and about her day at work and been very, very specific, but it wouldn't have the same meaning. So that's why an author is very strategic on what they include when they're writing their narratives, things that are important. So, for example, in her narrative, she included the fact that she didn't check who the bus driver was. So the quote from the text is, "I didn't look to see who was driving." The reason she included that is because she had boarded the bus driven by the mean driver she had already encountered. So it kind of already lays the foundation of something that's already happened and brings it to the forefront. This is why she decided to include it, because that's an important detail, that this guy was mean. She already knew he was a mean driver, and how that actually keeps going with the story. The next detail is the other passengers sitting in the middle section of the bus. It says there was a man sitting next to the window and two across the aisle. So this is important because it's showing how the other people on the bus responded to the driver's orders. They moved and did whatever they needed to do, but she was, not willing to bend basically to what he was saying. So that's why that was an important detail that was put in. So when you're writing a narrative, be sure to put in details that mean something. If you're talking about your a surprise birthday party, you wouldn't want to start talking about, your dog Fluffy and how you had to take him to the vet, because it didn't go along with what your story is, and that detail isn't very meaningful. So this is one more that you're going to read. Feel free to pause and reread it carefully. It's just a little bit of an excerpt from her story. Okay, so we've already been working on our surprise narratives. You're going to continue writing on them. So we're going to be working on them for 2 more days. So remember, it should include an introductory sentence, which is it should describe the time and place, describe who was involved, who else might have been involved, what were you expecting before you were surprised. You're going to describe the moment of the surprise and how you reacted. You're going to give the first 2 events or moments, and then the rest of the events and moments. These are really important for you to include in your surprise narratives to be as detailed as possible. And that is it for today's lesson. So make sure you complete your assessment attached to this lesson and send it to your teacher, and we will see everyone in the next lesson.